And then there were 4. After a historic second weekend, the NCAA tournament marches towards Indianapolis. The Final Four is here.
The men's side has the shocking upsets and buzzer beaters, while the women's side features a battle of the Titans at the top.
I'm Haley Smith. Later on, I will give my standout players in the men's tournament and an update on my bracket.
And I'm Tamar Stubbs. Also later, I've got the top women's tournament performers and an update on my bracket as well. Courts in Session Post Check Edition is live and starts right now.
Hello and welcome into another Courts in Session Pulse Check edition. As always, I'm Pat Dallahan and he's Xavier Adams. The Sweet 16 and Elite 8 have officially wrapped up the second week of March Madness.
And in typical March fashion, there was drama galore, upsets, buzzer beaters, Dan Hurley headbutting refs. It was all there, so let's get right to it. And Pat, speaking of Dan Hurley headbutting a ref, it was on the tail end of the Braylon Mullins 35-foot game winner, UConn over Duke to go to the Final Four. One of the greatest endings we've seen in March Madness history, period. Pat, your thoughts?
Yeah, it wouldn't be a stretch for me to say that the win that the Connecticut Huskies of the basketball capital of the world, the 6-time national champion Connecticut Huskies, had the best win in the history of the Elite 8 and maybe the history of their program. Obviously, down 15 at half, trailed by as many as 19 in the first half. One seeds were 134-0 when leading at half.
Quick fact for you, Pat, that was the largest halftime lead blown by a one seed in tournament history. The halftime lead was 44-29. I just have to put that out there for Duke.
Yeah, when they're leading by 15 plus points, they're 134-0. After this weekend, 134-1. We'd love to show you the Braylon Mullins shot, but thanks to a CBS embargo, we can't. But we can show you the reaction to one of the great shots in college basketball history. So here's how the Braylon Mullins game winner sounded on Learfield UConn Sports Network. Take a listen.
He runs the baseline. He gets it into Cameron Boozer. They double him. Back to Sarr. Now ahead to Caden Boozer. And a steal. Mullins gets it. It's Caravan to Mullins. Long-range three. Oh! It went in! Mullins delivers. Bedlam. Bedlam here. And UConn is headed to Indianapolis. How did that happen? No way! Put that in the category of miracles.
It was bedlam down in Washington, D.C. following the UConn win. And moving on from the UConn win, now we have to talk about Tennessee and the Volunteers coming to an end in their dance. Michigan takes down Tennessee in a convincing win, 95-62, kind of what we expected out of a very, very unselfish Michigan basketball team.
Yeah, you got to give Rick Barnes some credit, though. This is his third consecutive Elite 8, and for a guy that's kind of struggled to get to that point previously in his career.
Elite 8 loss, too.
Right, third straight Elite 8 loss, too. So he's starting to get over the hump, but he still has to get to a Final Four.
Yeah.
And this was the worst Tennessee team he's had in the last 3 years. They were a 1 seed in 2024, a 2 seed last year, and this year a 6 seed. So a great coaching job by Rick Barnes this year.
Right, well, Jackson Lendeborg named the Midwest most outstanding player. Michigan went on a 21-0 run in that first half. There was absolutely no chance.
He's a bad man.
He is a bad man. We saw him in the American the year prior, but
2 years prior.
2 years prior, but there was no chance of Tennessee really coming back in that one. And now talking about no chance, it was Illinois against Iowa, and there was really no chance of Iowa taking down Illinois. Illinois wins 71-59. The first Illinois Final Four in 21 years since the year I was born, Pat, 2005.
Yeah, they lost to North Carolina then in the Final Four. Our executive producer, Matt Fine, Xavier, and I have bonded over our love for this Illini team all year.
Eastern European.
Yeah, Matt saw them play at the Palestra against Penn State. They wiped the floor with them. As you know, it's Penn State in basketball. It happens often.
Right.
But Illinois, the tallest team in the country, the #1 ranked offense in the country, and they've proven why. They've just got so much versatility. You love the Ivisic brothers.
I really do. I love the whole Eastern. I think, just real quick, I love the way that we're really seeing NIL-shaped teams, and Illinois is such a huge example. Before, it's hard to see Europeans coming out of the league, coming into college because there's more money there. Now, with NIL, you can really make any team with the money that you have. But making any team, you have to talk about the homegrown Purdue that falls now. They don't go to the Final Four. Arizona takes them down 79-64. A second-half defense really just strangled Purdue in that game.
Yeah, Matt Painter comes up short in the NCAA tournament. Must be a day that ends in Y. Purdue, obviously, outside of Zach Edey in 2024, really, I don't want to say that they came short this year or that it was a disappointment, because Arizona was generationally good. So physical, such a big team. It's not falling short, but you got to see some more wins in March, Matt Painter.
Absolutely. Well, as seasons are ending and teams outside of the Final Four are moving on, we got to hear the coaches' perspectives on all of the March chaos.
Let's listen in to what the coaches of both the winners and the losers throughout this weekend's Sweet 16 and Elite 8 had to say.
And we just got to hold on. And, you know, it's easy to look at that play. You know, I look at every play that happened, especially in that second half. This is not about one play. It's about every play to put us in that position.
I mean, I think that last possession, it was just we were trying to foul the worst free throw shooter on the floor, and Silas ended up deflecting the pass to the other end of the floor. And it's just, I had the ball, and I know AK had just hit one, so I threw him at 4 seconds left, and man, he just threw the ball back to me. I knew I had to put one up. So, man, I'm just happy that was the one that went down tonight.
They were the #1 offensive team in the country for a reason. You know, they showed us in those first 4 minutes. You know, in the media timeout, we all regrouped. You know, we thought about what we needed to do. That was the game plan all along. So,
I mean, we had some open shots that didn't go down, and that's where they were able to get out, capitalize. And then I thought that a little bit because we weren't making shot. Not that we quit, because we would never quit, but it put us back on our heels a little bit.
You know, when you're down 7.5, you think this thing's going to come down to the last 4 minutes. You're going to have to find a way. And that was what I told the guy. Let's find a way to be in the game at the last 4 minutes. And we've been great closing games this year.
Obviously, we didn't make as much shots as we did in the first half and the second half. And then obviously those add up. And then I felt like we had just a couple turnovers here and there, and then obviously missed shots. And then we weren't able to get a couple stops.
They consistently crash all 5 guys. And so we didn't do a great job making sure we're boxing out and getting the ball. And that was just kind of consistently through the game. We just didn't do a very good job hitting and making sure that we were getting the defensive rebounds, and that led to them getting a bunch of O-boards.
I know I dreamed of this when I was growing up, playing in the Final Four, competing for a national championship. I'm meant to be able to do it with the people around me, you know, teammates, coaches, fans, managers, everyone. It means a lot.
Those were some words from both the coaches and the players in this weekend's action. Some seasons ending, some continuing on to the Final Four, all while we continue on to another break. Stick around.
Because when we return, it's time to take a look at the women who have established a Final Four of their own. The Courts in Session Pulse Check Special is back in 90. Welcome back to the Pulse Check Special. The Women's Final Four is finally all set, and it's almost exactly who you thought it'd be.
The top teams are as dominant as ever, so perhaps we're in for a Clash of the Titans style finish in the semis and then the final. Let's start things off. We're staying in the basketball capital of the world, right off of exit 68 at the University of Connecticut. Perfect again. And although that their season in the NCAA tournament and regular season tournament has been perfect, no losses yet, Geno Auriemma has not been pleased with how this has played out.
No, not at all. I think it's super interesting because last week we were also talking about with the Syracuse women's head coach, Felicia Leggett-Jack. She was also very critical of the way that the bracket is currently being set up. And Geno Auriemma, it's shocking to hear coming out of a guy that's won 54 consecutive games in a row, 12 national titles, 25th Final Four for Geno Auriemma. It sounds ridiculous when you think about it, but coming from a guy, even he's criticizing the format of the NCAA tournament because he's worried about the 2 neutral site format. With 8 teams in 2 different arenas, there's really no time to warm up. The Sweet 16 shooting percentages are incredibly low. The Elite, I'll give you some numbers from the Elite 8 3-point per shooting percentages. Texas, 16% from 3. Michigan, 13% from 3. UCLA, 14%. Notre Dame, 33%. Duke, 8% from the three-point line. Gino, along with a bunch of other head coaches in this tournament, are not happy with the fact that they're getting new basketballs, unbroken in rims, and it's really affecting the percentages and the product that they're producing there on the court. So super interesting to hear from Gino Auriemma.
Balls are overinflated. I'm a big proponent of that argument. We got to deflate the basketballs, NCAA. Let's move on to another orange-themed school or orange-themed thing. Texas advances to their second straight Final Four, a dominant win over the University of Michigan last night, who was looking, along with UConn, to have both teams in the men's Final Four and the women's Final Four. Would have been quite something if that happened.
No, it would have been absolutely something. Texas really destroyed Michigan, Pat. Final score 77-41. Texas missed one shot in the first quarter, Pat. I thought that was absolutely ridiculous.
That is ridiculous.
It is a ridiculous stat. Madison Booker for the Longhorns had 19 points, 8 of 13 from the field, 7 boards, 2 steals. Like a really effective and monster game, and just as effective out of Justice Carlton. 15 points, 7 boards, 3 steals. A super, super dominant team that we saw take down a really good Michigan team, just nowhere near enough to comp with that Final Four. Now on to the rest of the Final Four. We have to talk about South Carolina.
North Philly
zone. Dawn Staley clinching their 6th straight Final Four bid. South Carolina looking absolutely lethal as always. It's their Final Four. They've reached the Final Four in 7 of their last 9 seasons, and in that 3 different natties. That's a great resume for Dawn Staley. They were coming into this tournament game averaging almost 100 points in each of their tournament games so far.
Yeah, and they overcame like a pretty slow start, right?
Yeah.
And credit to TCU. They were in this game for the entire 40 minutes, from gate to wire. They did an excellent job of not letting this South Carolina team overpower them the way that we've seen 1 seeds overpower their other opponents throughout this tournament.
Consecutive losses now in the Elite 8 for TCU.
Right, very different team structures. Last year was Haley Van Lith. This year was Notre Dame transfer Olivia Miles getting it done for them. So they fall short in the Elite 8 again. But just because it's March doesn't mean that only the Duke men can throw everything away in the NCAA tournament. It's the women's too.
Yeah.
It's March, which means that Duke basketball just falls apart.
You wouldn't think so because they're consistently ranked so incredibly high. Duke was the 3rd seed coming into this. The first Duke 3 didn't come until the 4th quarter. But believe it or not, Duke actually had UCLA down at the half, which is incredibly rare. It was the 2nd time all season that's happened. The only other time it happened was during UCLA's singular loss, and it, of course, was to Texas. However, with the women's tournament also wrapping up, we once again get a new slate of responses out of the coaches.
Excuses, praise, anger. The coaches go through it all during March, at least the ones who are lucky enough to even get there.
Yes, it's time to single out some players. I'll give you a couple of my standout players from the men's tournament, along with one that I'll be paying close attention to.
And the same goes for the women's bracket. I will take a look at some of the best performances from the Sweet 16 and the Elite 8, along with a player the country has been sleeping on. But first, we're going to call a timeout. Courts in session. We'll be back in 90.
Welcome back to the Courts in Session Pulse Check Special. Before we went on the last break, we promised you guys we would hear from some of the head coaches and their responses following their Elite 8 games.
Yeah, and here at Owl Sports Update, we like to keep every single promise. So let's take a look at some of these clips from this week's pressers.
We saw that, the refs were allowing us to play a little bit more. So just being a little more aggressive with them, making them earn every basket, and the baskets they hit were tough baskets. UConn's a great team, and we knew we weren't going to keep them scoreless. So it was really just a matter of making every single thing tough for them, and I think we did a great job of that.
What we saw last game, she got a lot of shots up, so we wanted to limit her touches, not let her get into her rhythm and kind of get her team going. Again, it's our point guards were guarding them, but we were in the help in the gap, so just not letting her do whatever she wanted to do.
Yeah, they're a really good team. They're super experienced, and when they came out, we just didn't have a response to it. So credit to them for going into the locker room and making the correct changes to be able to win the game.
We understood that the first half wasn't a good representation of how we want to play basketball, but Corey came in, and what she said right now is just like, how do we stick back to our values and stay neutral, focus on next play speed.
We're so excited to match up with them is because we pride ourselves in our defense as well. So I would say definitely they altered our shots, but we got to our spots and just couldn't finish them.
Hidden shots, they were getting open shots. They may have not made it, but they were getting open shots. I was like, we're going to turn this around. We're letting them dribble around too comfortable. This is way too much, and we started doing a lot better.
I think they just gained momentum. They were getting O boards. They were able to push in transition, and I think at the end of the day,
they found their momentum.
Before we got to the 5-minute mark in the fourth quarter, we will be up by 20, and that's what we did. I feel like our defense got more intense, and defense turned into offense. We were able to get some transition buckets, and it just went up from there.
Some interesting analysis there from the players and coaches following the Elite 8 games.
But that's not all the analysis we have with you. Joining us now in the studio set are our wonderful beat reporters, Haley Smith and Tamar Stubbs. Guys, give us the goods. What do you got?
Yeah, thanks, Pat. March is when basketball history is made, and the players who are still on the hunt for the national title are putting up a good fight to add their names to the record books.
There were some amazing games watching the Sweet 16 and Elite 8 for both the men's and women's tournament. So Haley and I will give you our standout players. Haley, who's up for you?
I'll tip things off with senior forward Alex Karaban from UConn. Karaban averages about 48% from the field, 39% from three, and 85% from the line. He's not the Huskies' leading scorer, but he is a leader overall for this team and has been key to its success all season. Karaban has scored 71 points so far in the tournament, with at least one more game to go. My other standout player is Keaton Wagler, a 6'6" guard from Illinois. Wagler is only a freshman and leads his team in points, assists, and steals per game. He averages almost 18 points, but on Saturday versus Iowa, he put up 25. Karaban and Wagner will meet on Saturday in the Final Four around 6 o'clock.
For the women, my standouts, I'll start with arguably the most dominant team in the nation, UConn, and their 6'2" sophomore Sarah Strong in her Elite 8 game against Notre Dame, bringing home 21 points, 7 rebounds, and 5 steals. Strong put it on one of the best sophomore campaigns this season on one of the best teams in the nation. Next, I have one of the most entertaining and energetic guards in the country, Notre Dame's 5'6" junior Hannah Hidalgo. In her Sweet 16 game against Ohio State, Hidalgo racked in a near triple-double at 26 points, 13 rebounds, and 8 steals, a threat on both sides of the floor, and a prolific scorer from anywhere on the court. But then again, most of us know these standouts. With the Final Four ahead of us, let's take a look at who might be an impact player in this final upcoming weekend.
My impact player this week is freshman guard Braden Burries from Arizona. Burries leads the Wildcats in points per game with an average of 16. In the Sweet 16 win over Arkansas, he shot about 63% from the field, 50% from three, and 87% at the free throw line, scoring 23 points for his team. On Saturday versus Purdue, Burries shot 57% from three and 100% at the line. This was his lowest scoring game of the tournament so far with 14 points. Arizona takes on Michigan in the next round and will need Burries to keep up his season averages to come out with a win.
My impact player is somebody that I feel like is going to put the country on notice during the Final Four this next game. The Texas Longhorns 6'1" junior Madison Booker. Booker is one of the most talented women in the country, a mid-range menace who comes off screens for catch and shoot opportunities or works in the mid-post, facing up and using her great footwork to get an open shot. Booker is very smooth handling the ball, never sped up, and gets to her spots on the floor at a very efficient rate, as well as driving to the basket with ease. Flaws-wise, she isn't having the best shooting from the perimeter this season, so teams potentially could wall up her in the paint, double-team her, taking away the mid-range and close-range shots that she loves so much. Booker is stamped by former Texas Longhorn Kevin Durant himself, and my pro comparison for her is Carmelo Anthony. Flaws and all, when it comes to Booker, you can pick her for a big game in the Final Four. Since Haley and I are out of the running for the top bracket, this gives us a chance to watch the games without having to root for any one team.
That bracket talk is coming your way, and it isn't pretty. Guys, back to you for now.
I don't know whose bracket isn't pretty. I'm in first, but thanks for the standout coverage, as always, from you two. Excellent all year long. We do have one more break upon us, though, so stick around.
When we return, we're checking in on our brackets, and all at least I can say is oh dear. Courts is back soon. Welcome back to our special edition of Courts in Session. They say you save the best for last, but in this case, it's hard to say really any of us did well. It's, of course, our brackets. And whether this guy goes 0-68 or 68-0, I know that my guy Pat has something to gloat about. So Pat, go ahead and get the gloating going.
First Haley, now you. We got to start speaking for ourselves around here, guys. My bracket is in a pretty good spot. I mean, I got 3 of the 4 Final Four teams. I'm first place in the Owl Sports Update Bracket Challenge, not a big deal. And an East region that saw me get only one game wrong, that being USF versus Louisville. But my magnum opus, my best pick of the tournament, and maybe the entire year, came on Sunday in the Elite Eight. 1-seeded Duke and 2-seeded UConn collided in what felt like the biggest game ever. Duke and UConn are certainly the 2 best programs in college basketball in the last 35-ish years. I mean, a combined 11 national championships, a billion Final Fours, and arguably the 2 best coaches in the sport today. And what happened? The most hilariously Duke thing ever. A 15-point lead blown entirely in the second half. UConn completes one of the craziest comebacks in tournament history thanks to Braylon Mullins.
Yeah.
The basketball capital of the world had to remind everyone why the sport runs through Connecticut. But that's enough bragging from me, X-Man. How's that bracket looking?
You know, Mr. Connecticut, X-Man has a couple more X's on the bracket, and it's not looking too good. So 2 of my Final Four teams are out now, and it's, of course, Houston and Kansas. Last week, I shared my sentiments, my sad sentiments on the Jayhawks, and this time, it's the Cougars that break my heart. Kelvin Sampson lost to Brad Underwood, and the Fighting Illini, who now didn't just beat Houston, they also beat Iowa, and now advance to the Final Four. Illinois produced one of the best and most potent offenses in the nation, being led by Keaton Wagler and David Mirkovich. They may now earn themselves, because of that, a shot at the national title. However, Pat, on the other side of my bracket, I actually didn't do too badly. I picked both the Michigan Wolverines and the Arizona Wildcats to be facing off, and, you know, it was a spot-on pick. And yes, I am expecting praise for picking 2 of the #1 ranked teams in the nation.
No.
However, that's enough of me and my bracket. It's time to kick it over to Tamar and his bracket. Hey, Tamar.
I'm ready for that kick out, always shot ready. Let's take a look into my Final Four bracket and see what went right, which is Arizona and Michigan. Meeting each other in the Final Four, I had Arizona advancing to the national championship. 2 consistent and commanding teams. Get your popcorn, this should be a really great game. Now, let's see what went wrong. I had Illinois losing to Penn back in around the 64. Boy, was I wrong. I also had Duke coming out as the national champions, but a great 1 in a million play by UConn destroys my bracket, and I'm not mad at Caden Boozer. When you see a trap coming your way, as a player, you're taught to advance the ball to the open man. Great defensive play, and even better shot by the Huskies. It's easy to be Captain Hindsight on what should have happened looking at the TV, but in real time, the moment goes by so fast. Isaiah Evans couldn't even get a hand up in time, and that's what happens, and that's the beauty of basketball. Haley, your turn.
Tamar, I've correctly predicted 2 of the Final Four teams, but that Duke loss to UConn was just tragic, moving me from 2nd in our Owl Sports Update bracket down to 10th. Let's back it up to the Sweet 16. I predicted 5 correct winners, but Gonzaga, Florida, and Virginia all lost in the second round, taking them out of the running for wins in the round of 16 as I predicted. VA's loss has really hurt my bracket. I had the Cavaliers going all the way to the Final Four after seeing how close that ACC championship game was. But Tennessee was just too much to handle. Now back to that UConn win that really shook up my bracket. The Blue Devils were up big, and I was already coming up with things to tease Pat about, but then disaster struck. I had Duke making it all the way to the final before taking a loss to Arizona. Luckily, the Wildcats are still eligible for the title. That wraps it up for us from the studio set. Guys, back to you.
Thanks, Haley. We'll have the final verdicts on those brackets and on the bragging rights soon, but for now, we are out of time. Thank you all so much for being with us here. As always, I'm Xavier Adams, and he's Pat Dallahan.
For continued coverage on all things cherry and white, make sure to tune in this Thursday at noon right here on TUTV. Gabriel Liddington and Kayla Levine will have you covered. One last time in March, we say thank you. We sleep in May. We'll see you in April.